Alright, got my brother's 2002 Ford Ranger 4-liter V6. Looks like the alternator failed on this thing, so gonna be swapping one out, but I figured show you how the diagnostic parts of this Schumacher Charger works. It's the PSC 12500. So I got it connected, gonna plug it in. So last night I charged the battery up with this charger just so I could move it around for the time being. So right now it's giving you a real-time voltage, you know, 1270. That seems like pretty good voltage. So I'm going to start it up and it's going to show the alternator output. As you can see, it's at 0. So that setting is battery percentage. Now we're at voltage. Obviously 1230, it's not charging. Should be between 1380 and 1440. So I have to get this alternator swapped out. Alright, so first order of business is to take the negative lead off the battery. It's an 8mm. Tuck that cable out of the way so it can't make contact with the battery. And then I'm just going to get the charger going on here while I'm doing the swap, so the battery's all charged up and ready to go with the new alternator on there. I love these instructions that come with the alternator. This alternator is not a battery charger. Alright, so when you first plug this charger in, it's just gonna sit here and be in a diagnostic mode. So the setting I want it on is 12 volt standard, and I'm just gonna do 2 amp. So when I push this button, it's gonna click onto that 2 amp mode and start charging. You hear that fan kick on. So now I can choose between voltage and battery percentage. See how the voltage is starting to climb? It says we're at 95%. So I'm just gonna let this sit on here. Sure, by the time I'm done swapping that alternator out, it should be fully charged, ready to go. Alright, so to gain access to the alternator, I'm gonna have to take off this induction tube. Alright, so take this cover off. You got 3 7mm. There's 2 right here. There's 1 in the back there. So once you get the cover off, there's another 8mm, and then on the back side here, just lift this wiring harness off for the mass air meter, and then pull this PCV tube out, and this will pull out of here. Okay, so the next thing I did is, while the belt's still on, I got a 13mm deep socket with a short extension on it, the long handle, 3/8 drive. You got 3 attaching bolts. There's 1 up top here, there's 2 along the bottom. So what I like to do is I'll actually try tightening it first, you know. Don't go crazy, but start putting some torque on it, tightening it, and a lot of times that helps me break it loose. So then I'll switch it to go the other way to loosen it, start working on it, and once it starts cracking loose, I'll tighten it up again and kind of keep going back and forth. You know, because a lot of this stuff is, you know, it's easy to break it. You figure this truck's an 02, I mean, it's pretty old. So, you know, all this metal has been fatigued and heat cycled and all that, so it's just something to keep in mind. So, broke those bolts loose. Next thing I'm going to do is remove all these connections. There's looks like a grounding wire over here. I sprayed some of that liquid wrench penetrant on there. Let it soak in there, should make it easier to get that out. Alright, so there's a couple plugs. They go on the back side. I just use this little flat blade screwdriver. Just kind of, you know, get it under there and pry it a little bit and you'll be able to pull them back. Same thing with the bigger one. And then this lead is a 10 mil on the side there. So got those all off. I think that's all that's on there. So next step's going to be taking the belt off and then be able to take the mounting bolts loose and pull the alternator out of there. Alright, so to get the belt off, the tensioner has an opening for a 3/8 drive. So you put a 3/8 drive ratchet in there and you basically pull the ratchet towards the passenger side of the vehicle, and that's gonna take the tension off the belt. So you're probably gonna want a long handle 3/8. Probably doesn't help that I had the swivel end on there, but yeah, this is probably going to be hard if you don't have a long enough ratchet to do that, so you might want to make sure you got the right ratchet to do that, but it's got to be a 3/8 drive. So yeah, now that the belt's off, we'll be able to take these mounting bolts off, get that out of there. Alright, so got the 3 mounting bolts out of there. It's kind of funny, I thought I was going to have to beat this thing off with a hammer, but took the last bolt out and it just slid down, so yeah, looks like there's a wire loom on there. Okay, I have to grab my fork tool and get this wire loom off. It's over there on the side. Alright, so that loom is for the mass air meter. I actually took the air box out because looked like there was some dirt inside of the mass air meter, so I'm going to clean it out. I actually had a problem with this truck starting and dying, and it ended up that the mass airflow meter was dirty. It's kind of odd, like I've never seen that. So, I mean, it was crazy. We took the air meter out, sprayed some cleaner on there, let it dry for like a half hour, threw it back on there, and the truck ran perfect. So I don't know, I've never seen that happen before, but obviously it happened on this truck, and looks like this filter really needs to be cleaned and all that, so I don't know, probably save that for another day, but I figured I'd clean up the meter. So anyways, that's why the air box is out, but the harness that's attached to the alternator is for that mass airflow sensor. So I just got a fork tool. I mean, this is kind of a body shop tool. I don't know how many mechanics have something like this, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere. They're pretty handy. Definitely a good idea to get one of these. So there we go. Should just pull out of here now. Alright, so the other thing you want to make sure you do is just kind of go through and compare the two. You know, looks like they're pretty identical. That pulley actually looks slightly bigger than this one, but I don't know, shouldn't be a problem. I guess we're gonna find out. But yeah, we're ready to get this bolted back in there. Alright, so I got the 3 mounting bolts back in there, and I put some of this white lithium grease. I'm gonna do a ground upgrade So I'm just going to attach it to the that mounting bolt up top there. And now I'm going to run that cable directly to the negative lead on the battery, and going to put some of this lithium grease on the other electrical connections going in, the other plugs and that charge wire. Alright, so I got that loom pushed back into the housing right there, the little push clip. I got the both the connections back on there. I sprayed a little lithium grease inside those connectors, snapped them back in. Got this all tightened up, all the mounting bolts. This ground wire's ready to go. So next thing I'm gonna do is get this belt back on. The other thing too, I use this Scotch-Brite pad to scuff up that charge lead that goes on the side there. So I got lithium grease on that as well. And I scuffed up this ground cable too. And I'll probably do the same thing, scuff up the other side of it and put some lithium grease on it before I put it back on the battery. Alright, so got the belt back on. When I loosened this belt, I didn't take it all the way off. And you can see the 3/8 drive ratchet down there sticking into the opening in the tensioner. It's the tensioner pulley down there. Well, it's kind of hard to see, but it's kind of difficult to film this. But basically, I took the belt off of these pulleys when I took the tension off. So I mean, don't take the whole belt off, just get it off of there so you can get it off of the alternator and leave most of it still routed on there. Make it a lot easier putting it back on. It's probably be a lot easier with some help. I mean, I did it by myself, but if you got someone to help you out, it's probably going to go a lot easier. And like I said, you're going to want to really make sure you have a long handle 3/8, because you're going to want as much torque as you can get to pull that tensioner. Alright, so looks like I'm down to just getting this intake back together and then finishing this ground wire onto the battery. Yeah, this is what happens when you don't clean your K&N. Just wiped it with that towel. It's pretty nasty. So yeah, probably gonna do that later, but definitely gotta get this filter cleaned up. That thing's nasty. Alright, so I took the charger off of there because I'm going to be trying to get that ground wire hooked up to the negative lead. I'm really close to the battery, so I figured it was time to disconnect that. So that negative lead, I cleaned it up with the battery terminal cleaner, cleaned the terminal, tried to wipe off the top of this battery. You know, if you get a layer of grunge on top of that battery, it can actually cause a path of continuity. So you can actually lose voltage to the case of the battery. So it's always a good idea to keep the top of that battery clean between the terminals. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take that screw out of there, and I'm going to mount that cable in the center to ground it to the battery. Alright, so got the extra ground on here. I actually had to peel back. It's kind of like little locking tabs on there. I had to peel them back so this mounting bolt will come all the way out, so I could slide that ground wire on there. So that runs back, comes around, and it's grounded to that bracket. So got the tube back on there, the 8mm bolts for the tube, the 7mm bolts, 3 of them for this cover, the PCV back on there, this little harness holder, the mass airflow all hooked back up, and just to verify this ground. So I got the meter on the positive side of the battery, so I'm going to touch it to the ground here. We're getting voltage, so we know that ground is working. Alright, all we got to do is fire it up now. So you see we're up to 14 volts, so definitely charging.